Hey everybody, we're back! Look at that!
Whoa!
I guess the last episode came out pretty recently, but it's been almost 3 months since we filmed, which is maybe the longest it's ever been. Partially because last time we filmed so many episodes in 2 days over reading break. And here we are now, and it's the 8th of May, which is nuts.
I'm not in
So
Vancouver anymore.
yeah, we're back on two cameras again, which is annoying and sad. I miss Victoria.
Aww.
But, 4 months will fly by. Life does that when you get old. Episode 116. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
We are reviewing the last part of Prisoners of Fear, Part 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then Part 3 of...
One more.
Name.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. In this double 3-part review, we finally gotten to the end of that. So now we get to wrap everything up for both of them. First, we have a lot of news items because it's been so incredibly long. So first off, we have the tentative OAC schedule for the rest of the year. Do you want to read that out, Victoria?
Yep. Just a sec. So episode 116, A Perfect Testimony.
816, probably.
816, that's what I meant. 116 would be around Karen or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Karen
that'd
was
be around
50.
No, like
It'd be around
35
album
is Connie.
8 or 9
Yeah.
because album 7 has episode 100, which is ice fishing.
So 816, A Perfect Testimony. 817, Unfair Game.
And those are both out now, so obviously those are confirmed. That's when they are.
818, Swept Away. Better not be like flushed away. So that's Swept Away Part 1. 819, Swept Away Part 2.
For May and
820, The Legend of Sperry McGurk.
Sorry, that was June, July, and August.
Episode 2, Episode 8, 21, I can't talk. Angels in Horsehair.
September.
I think that one's like a Western or something. I don't know. 822, There and Back Again, Part 1. 823, There and Back Again, Part 2. And 824, There and Back Again, Part 3. I want these ones to come out already. I've been waiting for them for a really long time. I want my Lord of the Rings episodes.
The schedule is partially tentative, partially because I've heard there's a chance at this point There and Back Again may become a 4-parter, may mean... Which is funny, given that
Do you think they'll get Andy Serkis to be in it? Because that would be awesome, because they got him for Screw Tape Letters.
They did.
That'd be amazing if they got him in this to, like, make a cameo. I would scream. I probably wouldn't recognize his voice, though, because...
He's Andy Serkis.
He's Andy Serkis. If I saw his face, though, I would be able to recognize it, unless he's CGI.
He was doing motion capture. Yeah, I've heard There and Back Again may become a 4-parter, in which case it's unclear whether the 4th part will be at the beginning of AIOC Season 5, or if they'll put 2 episodes into December, or if they'll knock one of the episodes earlier in this year to next year, and then shift There and Back Again down one so it fits into, like, September to December. It is funny, given that it's based on The Hobbit, that it's like, oh, we've taken this, we made it a 3-parter, oh, now we're stretching out to 4 episodes.
I like to think they did it on purpose.
Yeah. So, tentatively, that's the schedule for the rest of the year. Phil Lawler also posted on Facebook about recording 2 new scripts, which were BTV Revenge, which was written by...
BTV? I don't know how I feel about that.
Written by Sam Suksiri, who also wrote A Perfect Testimony, which is the April episode for this year. And Have a Heart, written by Marshall. And he also posted about a 2-parter he wrote called David and Absalom, which opened on
What's
scene
Absalom? Is that a Bible story?
Yes. Absalom was Solomon's firstborn son, I think, and then he was like, oh, blah, 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 and then he rode on the horseback, and then his hair got caught in the tree branch, and he hung himself to death.
I hope it's a story and not an imagination station adventure.
It would have quite a graphic ending if so.
Oh, wait, how does it end?
Like I said, I think he was running from David or running from Solomon or whatever on horseback, and his hair was super long, and it got caught in a tree branch, and it, like, hung till death there.
How
by
does
his hair.
that work? That's like how Mother Gothel should have died in Tangled. Yeah,
Hung
I don't
by
know about you, but
Rapunzel's
I
hair?
prefer like for the Bible stories, being told them by someone like Bernard rather
Mm-hmm.
than Imagination Station. Not that I don't enjoy Imagination Station, biblical adventures, because I really do, but like I want more
You
Red
like the
Hollard
narration?
story time.
I'm not sure what preference I have.
I
But
mean,
yeah,
I enjoy both, but if I had to choose one, or
the
maybe
op-
Room of Consequence, Bible stories in the future, because that works.
the gospel of technology.
And then
The
there's
opening scene for that episode has Olivia Matthew and Whit in it. Kelsey, Chris's daughter, she was also in the studio recording for AIO for a part, so she hasn't been on the show in quite a while. That's exciting.
who has she played?
She was Hallie in My Girl Hallie.
That's
Oh, wait, no,
Courtney.
sorry, she wasn't Hallie. She was the girl in the episode.
Oh, wait, I always thought that was Tamika.
No.
Huh.
Um, and then she has one other role according to Chris, but we don't know what it is because it's uncredited on the wiki. And because Chris always says she's been in 2 episodes, we don't know what the other one is. The Get in the Show contest, as I'm sure many of you are aware, is indeed back at it again, confirmed. And
Connie's getting another sibling.
reporting on it later, yeah, or earlier. Yes, submissions are open from June 1st to 12th for that, so
I bet I'm
check
too
it
old
out.
for it.
Yes, we are, and we also have to be in the U.S. I know. And finally, basically all the information is out for album 63 now, so next episode, we're going to be talking about our predictions for that. And I think that's all the news. There's probably a bunch of other stuff. That's everything I've written down. So let's get into our actual review now. We are talking about
Let's
first,
put on a show.
One More Name.
Part 3.
Yes. All right. Let's make that text bigger. Okay. What happened in part 3 of One More Name, Victoria? Episode 815, written and directed still by the amazing Kathy Buchanan.
Can you go over it instead of me? Because I might miss something.
Okay. So, I'm trying to think, where does this episode pick up? So,
Picks up
Ariella,
after people are kidnapped from part 2.
Ariella has gotten away and she's settled in now, and Stefan is out living out in the country close by to her. Irena keeps on smuggling children away. Eventually, the Gestapo show up and they take her to prison, and she's severely tortured for months. She meets Zofia in prison. She's taken out to be executed by firing squad, but Zagata paid off the firing squad guy, and he lets her go. She goes back, lives with her mother for more time. The jars are still safe with all of the names. And eventually she marries Stefan.
Which no one saw that coming.
I should point out, because I did read like the whole Wikipedia article on her life last night. Everything I've said so far is true to canon of reality. She goes back, she marries Stefan, lives on, and then it turns out Lily is not related biologically to Irena, but Lily's mother is Ariella,
which I thought was a good twist.
Because
we knew she was going to be related somehow, but we all thought she was going to be related to
Irena,
Elena.
Irena. Yeah.
Mari.
Yes. So, yeah, that was really cool. It was also another one of those things that emphasizes like how recently the Holocaust was, that it wasn't like,
it was
oh yeah,
Ariella.
It wasn't like Ariella was my great-grandmother. It's like she was my mother. That's one generation.
It was so weird to think about, but like then.
Well, here's the crazy thing.
Then she was like, and that's why I became a doctor, because Irena was a doctor.
Yeah. Well, do you know when Irena Sendler died?
Oh, this is gonna mess with me if you
2008.
Say. What?
Yeah.
Wait, when was she born?
1910. She died at 98 years old.
Wow. She
Yeah.
died at the same age Christopher Lee was when he passed away.
So it's like, that's so recent. 2008?
That's crazy to
It
think
is.
about.
I was in high school.
I was not in high school.
Okay, so top of the episode, I started listing out themes that I've been the most impressed with the show.
Can I just say
Yeah.
really quickly? This episode gave me what I wanted from the other two episodes. Like, finally, I was just like waiting for this thing to like, I don't know, come to a head and get like all tense and dramatic and stuff. Because there was some drama in the past couple episodes, but it like so much time passed. It felt like it didn't have like a super coherent storyline. And like that just like you knew where it was going. You never knew where it was going or anything like that. This episode you didn't really know where it was going to, but I felt like it was just like so much better than the other two episodes. Like I was so happy with this one and I finished it and I was like, yes, this is what I wanted the three-parter to do in the 3 episodes, and it just did it in one. So yeah.
So the themes I've been the most impressed with the show for, fitting into these episodes, the Holocaust and similar cultural genocides, that they leave children not just biological orphans but cultural ones as well, and that these kids had to change their names and their appearance and everything about their lives to hide their Jewish faith and heritage. They had to fake being Christians to survive, and after the war, even if they had new families, which they usually did because almost all of their parents died in Treblinka, they were left cut off from their heritage and faith. And these episodes have repeatedly emphasized the importance of connection to your roots and your faith, and why it was so important for these Jewish children to be able to reconnect to who they once were after they were safe. And not just be like, oh, I'm with a Christian family now, I guess I'll just change everything about my past. The acknowledgement that many of us have different types of privilege that allows us access and platforms that other people don't have, that we need to be thinking about the ways we can hand those privileges over to God so we can use them, just like he used Irena's privilege of not being Jewish and being a social worker to smuggle kids, or how he used Esther's privilege of being a queen to save the Jews. I really love that example because I see so many Christians deride when people talk about privilege, and they're like, oh, people don't have privilege, you SJW snowflakes, we're all equal and we all have equal voices because there's no such thing as racism or sexism anymore. And I'm like, there's an entire book of the Bible dedicated to the lesson of like the importance of privilege and how God puts us in places in our lives so that we have special privilege to be able to use for him to help others, which is exactly what Esther is about. When I think of privilege, I think of the verse of Mordecai saying, perhaps God has brought you into this place for such a time as this. And so the fact that they talked about that more in the episode discussion and the WebQuest stuff, but also in the episodes as well, I really, really like that. And then showing how, and I think this is the biggest one, throughout history, many good-intentioned, well-meaning people have watched tragedies pass by and did nothing because they didn't want to get involved. They showed a bunch of clips from the recording studio in the WebQuest, and one of them was, I think, from the first episode, or maybe it was the second episode, where Zagato was over at Irena's house, where like Karina and Itzhak, and they're like trying to tell her what they wanted her to do, and Irena's mother was like, no, I can't have her involved in this. I pray to God for a miracle for their safety, because what the Nazis is doing is wrong. And Itzhak is like, what if, he's like, well, it's fine to pray for a miracle, but you need to listen and ask yourself, are you the miracle that God is sending? We can't just stand by and be like, oh, God, please do something about this, as we stand by and watch these things happen. Olivia brings it up at the top of part 1, and we see it really strongly with Irena's mom, and she's like, yeah, I'd like to see the Jews be safe. I don't think the Nazis are in the right here, but they're the government, and they're scary, so I really don't feel like I want to be the one to put my life on the line for them. That's just the way the world is right now.
Bystander effect.
Yeah. There's a number of comments in various formats after the reviews of the first 2 parts of our videos that strongly suggest that I stop discussing politics and the Muslim ban in these reviews, and I declined to do so, though obviously it's not something that needs to be discussed still at this moment in time, because that's tabled for now, which means tabled in the American sense, which actually means the opposite of what it does in Canada politically. The thing is, not only did these episodes bear eerie similarity to that situation, but the themes of the episodes, as I just discussed, compel me to talk about it. Because Victoria and I, we have a platform by this podcast. It's not a huge platform, but it is something that allows us to speak. And I've seen throughout history the places where indifference and apathy from good people has wrought disaster. These episodes are a good example, and they talk about it over and over and over in them. So whether or not our speaking about it here did anything, the fact is that we, as the people of the world, when this happened in January, myself included, we donated money to people in need, signed petitions, called politicians, and compelled our own governments into action in various ways. Our voices were pooled and our voices were heard. And the executive order was overturned twice, I think, now. So it wasn't a perfect response, but imagine what would have happened if no one raised a fuss. First they came for the Muslims and I did nothing because I wasn't a Muslim. Then they came for the scientists. I did nothing because I wasn't a scientist, etc. When I see injustice in the world, I will call it out with all the platform I have, and I quite frankly do not care who derides me for it, because it's the right thing to do. And as I pointed out previously, I'm pretty sure I've reason to believe that Kathy had a distinct intentionality about the timing of the release of these episodes and their discussion questions. So it's not like I'm just reading too far into everything. All right, soapbox is over. TLDR, these episodes are great and covered a number of very relevant, important, complex topics. I love it. Yes, Victoria.
Can you tilt your camera down a little bit?
Yeah.
A little bit more. That's good. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you while you were making your speech.
Expositing. Okay, so...
I just say, I really loved Irena's mom in this episode. I didn't like her before this episode, but she owned this episode, basically. I mean, Irena owned it, but she came close. She was a close second. She was really great in it. I was waiting for her to go through, that life character development, I guess, since this is a true story, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, that was one part that was different. Apparently, in real life, it wasn't her, when the Gestapo came knocking at her door, it wasn't her mother, but one of her friends who hid the jars in their loose clothing. So Irena meets Zofia in the prison, So Zofia was a famous activist and journalist, and she was in prison together with Irena. The quote in the cell about people standing by as injustice passes before them was so good. I was like, I'm definitely holding on to that one. So for reference, the quote was, "What I don't understand is how people can sit back and see what's going on and do nothing. Dying Jews are surrounded by a host of Pontius Pilates washing their hands in innocence. We are required by God to stand up against cruelty. The blood of the defenseless cries to heaven for revenge." Really like that.
Pontius Pilate is the original bystander.
Yeah. So as Dr. Graham keeps talking about Irena, I was like, yeah, there's no way, there's no connection here, definitely. It's so obvious. I really didn't expect Irena to get rescued.
I didn't either. I was surprised by how intense the last part got.
I knew that either
the torture and stuff.
Since this is a real story, obviously either she or Zofia would have to get out, because otherwise we wouldn't have an account of what happened in prison to know.
I didn't think she was going to get out, honestly.
I can't believe they didn't pat down the mom when they searched the house.
This was right? It was
slightly
Rachel when she was covering up her dad's gods.
Slightly easier, yet less believable version of Rachel sitting on Laban's idols while she was on her period is exactly what I wrote. Yeah. Which that's still the funniest thing to me, that's how she got around that.
I mean, it worked. I didn't even know that that's what she was doing until you told me.
Yeah, I know. I think you found out on the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, that's why she was like, "I'm sorry, Father. I can't get up. I'm ill." I think is what they said in the Odyssey episode.
I
was
mean,
just
that's
like,
what people say nowadays.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
You can't
nothing's
touch
really
me
changed.
or you'll be unclean. Yeah. Yeah, and then to get married, like, insta-married. I was like, what a romance. Never would have seen it coming.
They had ice cream and bikes and everything.
So it still wasn't as bad as The Good Soil.
Man,
But,
if I met some people might say this is closed-minded of me, but I don't really care. If I met someone on a, like, because they were on a bike, or I wouldn't be the one on a bike, but if someone, like, met me while I was on a bike, one, I would be like, okay, that's a bit of a point against you because you're on a bike. Two, they knocked off my ice cream, and I'm not crazy about ice cream, but if I have it, that means then I really, really want it. And then they try to, like, woo me or something like that. I'd be like, no, 2 strikes, you're out. I don't care. I don't play sports. I don't know how baseball works. Leave me alone.
You win the sports, Victoria. You get the Stanley Cup.
I win sports.
What does Rose say? The highly coveted sports trophy. It goes to you. 2,500 children. Oh my good golly
That's
goodness. That is an absolutely unimaginable number.
It made me think of this video I saw where there was this, like, soldier and he saved all these people in a war. It might have been Vietnam. It might have been World War II. I'm not sure. But he was, like, in this giant amphitheater or something like that, and he was sitting at the front. And then he was called to the front, and then, like, everyone in the audience was someone he saved, but they were, like, grown up, and it was so emotional.
Yeah. I love that.
Devin can link that video in the description.
I'll find it, apparently, yeah. We'll talk about, like, all the details about Irena's actual life and how that compares to the episode at the bottom. So it was a substantially happier ending than I was expecting by quite a lot.
Same.
It's like, wow, this all actually turned out really well.
I think, like, I think it makes sense that the mom didn't actually hide the jar in real life. I mean, like, it could have gone either way, honestly. But, like,
I also don't know what the mother's attitude was to the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But, like, if the mom's attitude was kind of against it for the rest of it, I think it's, like, 50-50 chance that she would or wouldn't go along with it. Because something you learn, especially if you are a content creator in any which way and you have to write stuff, that writing characters is so much easier than dealing with people in real life because you can control their arcs. In real life, that's not how things work. So I was thinking, like, since it's based on a true story, there's a really high chance that the mom, like, won't change at all.
So yeah, we finally get the drop about Ariella. I can't believe that Lily was Ariella's daughter. It was so beautiful, and I think it made so much more sense poetically once it happened.
I'm so glad that she was, because if she wasn't, not only, I mean, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be this, but I feel like it would have been maybe a little bit of an ego stroke. Not necessarily, but, like, just be like, finish it and be like, yeah, that was my mom. She's so much cooler than your mom, who also works in the hospital, but, like, she didn't fight no war.
Traveled around with.
Like, hey, my mom's way cooler than your mom is.
Yeah, it was so good. It was very beautiful. And then they just keep, at the end, like, really still laying it on so heavily, the theme of the importance of not standing by during injustice, but using the privilege you have to help others. And they quote a bunch of characters from the story, and then they tie back to the words of Jesus. And Kathy just did such an incredible job with these episodes. They're the best that she has ever made.
I feel like it's the Citizen Kane or something like that of Odyssey episodes, but for me, that is, I have not seen Citizen Kane. I don't really, even though I'm kind of a movie buff, I don't really intend on watching it either. So for me to say that, it means like it's done very well and I really like it and respect it. But I think some parts were way better than the others, and I couldn't exactly get into it completely until the parts I really, really liked, which were like at the end and stuff, and every now and then scattered throughout the episodes. Like the end of part 2 was really intense. So I think I'll have to docket some merch for that. I'm not saying it's a bad episode. It was like so good. It's just like my personal preference. It's one of those things where you're like, I don't really know why I wasn't super crazy about it because it was really good. Some might even say perfect. I don't know if I would, but it's just, yeah, I don't know.
So web stuff. Doc, we start off with 2 girls talking about ways that programs at their school have made gestures towards the ostracized. They installed a buddy bench on the playground, which is basically, if you have no friends, you go and sit on the bright blue bench of shame. So someone will be like, oh wow, that person has no friends. Let's go and ask them to play. Apparently it
sad
works well.
and not sad.
Apparently it worked well, but I was looking at that and I was like, I would never sit. I could never bring myself to sit on that bench. That's the most depressing thing I've ever seen. It's like bad and isolated children. It's a blue bench
because it's coated in their tears.
Bad and naughty, lonely children go sit on the bench of shame to atone for their asocialism. Also, the bench was not only like strikingly bright blue, but it was raised. It was sitting on top of a pallet, so it was slightly elevated above.
Does it have like an engraving, like "Here lie people with no friends" or something like that?
Yeah. I was like, that's really depressing. They also knitted scarves and hats for the homeless, and they wrote letters to soldiers deployed overseas, and then the girls kind of talk about like how to knit for like 30 seconds. We get to see good old Jesse Floria talk about Clubhouse's Summer Challenge, which was an exercise program for the kiddies, where they got sponsors to pay them for exercising, and then the proceeds went towards helping young refugees from Syria continue their education. Some of them hadn't been in school for like 4 years because of the war. And they also helped build an entirely new school to help teach the kids, which is a super awesome thing to raise money for. And then Ellen Dubin and Felice Sampler, who played Zofia and Shoshana, talk about the themes of the episode. And Ellen quickly starts crying at just how important these episodes and their themes are and how they're still so relevant with what's happening in the world right now. Irena's mother also played Maybelline Dagmar in Mason County. I was like, yeah, I know. Accents, right?
One of these things is not like the other.
Accents, how do they work? And like I said before, they had 3 short, like less than a minute clips from the recording session in the WebQuest. Normally when they do them, it's like someone in the studio is filming something, but I think these were a lot more impromptu because they were from the recording booth, just someone like with a phone, just like...
So you got to see Christina V?
I did, yeah.
And you're like, yep, that's her.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Irena didn't pass away until 2008, which is so recent. It really drives home how recent the Holocaust was, which I think historically...
How old was she when she was helping in the war then?
Did
you say she was born in 1910?
Yeah, so she would have been
like 22.
29 to 35 during the war.
Wait, year did World War II?
39.
39?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My math is all...
Yeah.
Fungled up.
Yeah, I think it's lost on a lot of us now how recent the war was. And it's things like that make us realize like, wow, it's still around. There's still Holocaust survivors alive today. We've heard one speak in person before when we went to the Holocaust Museum. One
of Mom's students a couple weeks ago asked her if when she was a little girl, everything was in black and white.
Nice.
That's
okay, so
funny.
here's the stuff from Irena's Wikipedia page that I thought was interesting. So apart from politicians and diplomats who issued visas to allow Jews to escape, apart from them, Irena saved more Jews than any other individual during the Holocaust. Sendler is actually her married name from her first marriage. Her name, she was born Irena Krzyzewska, I think. It's like, it begins with Krzyz, which I'm not sure exactly how that's pronounced. I'll say Krzyzewska. So she married Mikshla Sendler in 1931, and they divorced in 47 after the war. So she was actually married to him during the war. They divorced in 47. After that, she married Stefan, who was indeed a Jewish friend from her university days. They had 3 kids together. And then she divorced Stefan in 59 and then remarried Mikshla again. And then they divorced again a second time. Yeah.
Going through those husbands.
Irena's line, "Every child saved with my help is the justification of my existence on the earth and not a title to glory," is a real quote, not just from the episode. The article explains that of the 2,500 children she saved, only 400 were actually directly smuggled by her out of the ghetto, and the other 2,100 she was responsible for, but she didn't directly take them out. It was because they were part of the movement that she started and ran, because she was the head of the Jewish children's section of Zagata. The jars, like I said, the jars of names were hid in the loose clothing of one of her friends, not her mother, when the Gestapo came knocking at the door. And she was awarded with the Righteous Among the Nations Award by the nation of Israel, and the Order of the White Eagle by Poland, which is Poland's highest civilian decoration. And she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007, the year before she died.
She didn't get it?
No, but she was nominated.
Who got it that year?
I did not see who got it that year.
I bet it was someone who made like a light bulb or something like that. Like something not as cool.
Al Gore.
Oh, well,
it went
what does he know?
It went to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Stop phoning.
I think run by Al Gore. All 3 art pieces for these episodes here have the spot color going on in them. I'll throw them up here. So we had first the scarf.
Schindler's List ones.
Yeah, so we had the scarf, and then Irena's cross on her nurse hat in the sewer, and then the candle in her yard.
Wasn't there one with a... Oh, no, never mind. I was going to say blanket, but that's the scarf.
Yeah. So they all had the spot color thing, all with the color red going on. So that was kind of a cool thing to do throughout the art. So, yep, that's everything I have to say about One More Name. Final thoughts. It was so good. They handled very difficult and complex social topics, very relevant to then, extremely relevant to now. They handled them so well, and they just, all of them, hammered home over and over and over in really good, really diverse ways, like talked about them in different ways.
So it didn't sound like way too repetitive.
Yeah, talking about quotes from scripture and from a number of different characters throughout and how it applied to their situations differently. It was so good, so good. Yeah, and the both with Lily and Olivia, and also with the stuff online, made sure to bring home the fact that these are all themes which are still very relevant today and not just something relegated to history and to the Holocaust. It was so good. It was so interesting. I'd never heard of Irena Sendler. I'd never, like I said, heard of the Warsaw Ghetto before this. I've learned so much from these episodes. The actors they got were all amazing. You know, the accents were all great, and they did such a good job of portraying the emotionalness of these episodes is so heavy, and they just nailed it so well. Getting Christina V to be in it, super cool. I'm still really excited about that. These were very good episodes. 5 out of 5, absolutely, on my end.
Yeah, everything you said, plus everything I said before. I wish I could give a different rating to part 3, because I know I'd give part 3 a 5 out of 5. But, like, I'm gonna give it a 3.7 out of 5. What?
Well, I knew it wasn't going to be 5, but I thought it'd be higher than 3.7.
Don't judge me.
It's like 74%.
Yeah, it's a good mark. It's not quite an A, but like
Barely a B.
it's a B. It's just my personal opinion.
I know.
From an objective view, I would give it 5 out of 5, but it's my personal opinion. So yeah.
All right.
Fight me.
Well,
like I said, I think these episodes were amazing. But
yeah. Oh, I'm so glad we started the year off this way. I can't wait to hear the soundtrack for these guys. Next. Prisoners of Fear, Part 3. Let's turn it over to that right now. Okay, Prisoners of Fear, Part 3, Episode 576, written by Marshall Younger. We are finally at the end of this amazing 3-parter. What happens in Part 3, Victoria?
So, Eugene and Katrina finally leave. Like, they figure out a way how to leave.
They realize Leonard's alive, possibly.
Yeah. The prison, and then, they go back to the Ashanti village and stuff. And then, what's his name?
Gobir.
Shows up. Joseph?
Yosef was with them already.
Yeah, Yosef's with them, and then Yosef is all just like, hey, I'm gonna kill Gobir because I don't like him. And then Gobir's like,
what?
I did.
Yosef was like, I can't go back to the village. I'm too ashamed.
You summarize it. My head really hurts. Sorry, I
almost offered you ibuprofen, but I don't think that'll work.
Yeah, I have a bit of a cold.
So they go back, and Yosef's like, oh, I can't go back. Oh, okay, finally convinced me. I guess we'll go. And they show up, and then all of a sudden, Gobir is there with a gun.
And he's like, fight me.
Yeah. He's like, 'twas I that set the house ablaze.
Twirling his evil.
Yeah, and he explains the whole thing and all that. And then they're like, no, Gobir, you have to let us in. He's like, I will shoot you if you try. And Yosef gets away, but they're like fighting. And then Kwame shows up. He's like, you made it across the river. I'm going to come across. And they're like, no, don't. No. And he's like, yes, do. And then he starts to cross the bridge. And then Gobir runs to him. And he's like, hold on, the waters are coming. And then the waters don't come. And Yosef's like, I broke the dam. And then Gobir has to fess up to everyone and own his shame. And Yosef comes back.
What's her face?
Aman.
What's her name? Aman. She's awesome. She's a queen.
So good.
She was just like, you don't go near me. You don't go near my son until you get your crap sorted.
Yeah, and then they fix the transmitter and it all works. And then they go back, and Eugene's like, I'm gonna go search for my father. I got the requisition.
And then he's just like, the submission was sent in for me to do this mission by an L.E. I think it's my dad.
L.E., yeah, Lord English. That's who sent it.
Could literally be any. There's a lot of people with names start with L's. There's a lot of people whose names start with E's.
Yeah, E. Leonard Eltzner. Yeah, that's him.
Can you imagine, like, if the spelling was the same, but it was someone else and the pronunciation was different, but you didn't know that because you were just reading it?
What, like
it's like Leonard.
Meltznoir, yeah.
It's very fancy. It's French.
I'm glad, yeah. You're looking for someone who almost has your last name? I'm glad that Eugene raises the point that I discussed last time, which is, why would God / the writers put him in this situation to raise his hopes just to have them dashed against the rocks? What's the point? He'll appreciate some lesson from it all eventually, but it would be an unnecessarily cruel situation, which works both from the in-canon perspective of why would God play things out that way, and the narrative perspective of what would the writers be hoping to accomplish with that plot in terms of Eugene's development. And then this question...
Sorry, continue.
This question is, of course, paid off before the end of the scene when we realize that Leonard escaped the cave-in.
I like that even though you end the episode and you know that he escaped and stuff like that...
But you don't.
You don't know if he's still alive.
Oh, this episode, you mean? I thought you meant the last episode.
No.
Yeah.
Like this one, Eugene says, like, oh, I think the person who sent this in is my dad, but he actually has, like, no proof or anything like that. Like, he could be wrong. And you're like, I hope he isn't, but at the same time, you kind of want to maintain that little sliver of doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking, like, that I wasn't sure if this was actually going to be resolved or something like that when I was little. I was like, we might never know, and it could just, like,
Wait,
end
so
like
you didn't
that.
know when you first heard
Well, I
this?
mean, I think you told me that the next couple
I mean,
albums
we knew
covered it,
because
though.
his face is on the cover of album 47.
Well, I didn't look at the cover of album 47.
Mhm.
I thought that was Eugene, which is weird because I was like, why is there two Eugenes? I don't get it.
I remember when I bought 44 at the Christian bookstore in Kelowna, I was with Dad, and he's like, you should buy an Odyssey album. I'm looking at them. And 47, when it first came out, it had this deal where there was like two of the albums packaged together for the price of one, like of the same album. So it's like you can give one to a friend. And I was like, why don't you get that? I looked at this. I'm like, I feel like this is in the middle of some plot heavy stuff that I don't know the context for, so I probably shouldn't jump in at this point. So I got 44 instead.
Yeah, because 44 is one of the first albums we ever got. You would have
It was the
spoiled
third,
yourself
yeah.
so bad
Mm-hmm.
for everything.
I mean,
Because it was
I found out about Everett from the official
Adelines,
guide by
Friends,
accident.
Family, Countrymen, Eugene Returns, and then 10 and 13,
5 and 13,
5 and 13.
and then 10, and then it kind of started going.
Then I think we started from the beginning after that.
Yeah.
I always get after all these people who like read books out of order or like watch movies out of order or do stuff out of order.
Okay, we had
But then
an
I'm like
excuse.
getting what?
We had an excuse though. We were very tired.
Yeah, like getting into Odyssey, we were no better.
And it's
really.
also most book series or movies that's like, oh, you did it out of order. There's not like 50, 60 of them in most cases. So
Hey, Percy Jackson. Book 12 came out last week. I haven't been able to buy it yet.
wow, book 12, that's very different than album 63. It's like the same exact
Do you have any
situation.
idea how long it took me to get through all those books?
Okay, so I'm surprised that Eugene wanted to go wait in the field for 2 days to be picked up rather than going back to try and finish working on the transmitter. Like, I get that he was kind of despondent about things and how it turned out, and the village kind of was like...
There was also that thing about his dad, but...
Yeah, and he also maybe didn't think like, oh yeah, there's 2 days left until we're picked up. We don't have any food with us. But it's like, surely they would want to at least let Amon know that they're alive and about Yosef and Aziz and all of that. It's only considerate.
I mean, he kind of has other stuff on his mind.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a good thing Katrina's with him. He would have starved. He would have seen a snake and he would have, like, fallen off a cliff because he jumped at the snake.
It's very impressive to me that Gobir was able to adapt and upkeep the dam for, like, at least a decade without anyone else.
I think it's impressive he built it in the first place.
I guess it's 2 decades because that's how long Leonard's been gone. Without anyone else knowing what was going on. That's crazy. I mean, he didn't build the dam, but...
Do you think, like, he ever left with, like, supplies or something like that just to, like, fix it up? And people are like, what are those for? And he's like, what supply?
What are you talking about? I really, really love Gobir as an antagonist. This arc is fraught with great, complex villains.
Nice word.
Thank you. Gobir is doing terrible things. He's imprisoning his people, killing Yosef, wanting to kill Eugene and Katrina, almost letting his own child die. But he's doing it out of the intention to protect his people from tasting the forbidden fruit of the world, trying to keep them pure from the corruptions around them. In a way,
he's like Mother Gothel.
In a way, it's actually really similar. Well, that's what Mother Gothel says. It's not what she was actually doing.
Yeah, I know. I was going to make a joke. I was going to say it's like a cure for wellness, but we don't talk about that movie.
In a way, it actually bears a lot of similarity to the Garden of Eden, with Gobir playing the role of God, and he's trying to keep his subjects from biting this fruit of the knowledge of the world. They're safe from the greed and hate and violence out there, but they're also isolated from the beauty and knowledge and joy of the goodness beyond their village. But of course, it's a little different because God provided a choice to Adam and Eve, which is the most important part of Genesis 3, and it is the part that Gobir has left out here. But still, I've always really loved the ethical dilemma in stories of whether to eat the fruit or not in different scenarios, especially when it's like, do you let other people eat the fruit and like get that knowledge, but also be open to the knowledge of pain and hurt? Steven Universe did it recently with the Human Zoo episode very well. finding a small group of people that have lived and been bred in captivity in this alien zoo for over 5,000 years, and they have their every need catered for, and they just swim and sleep and play and eat and reproduce, and that's their life, and no concepts of pain or hunger or sickness or death. It's a very eerie situation where the people all just unerringly obey the booming voice from the sky that dictates their schedule and with whom they mate, and every waking moment of their lives are controlled, and they see nothing wrong with it. And it seems like the ethical thing to do would be release them and let them learn about the real world and live their own lives and make their choices. But this would come at the cost of letting them know about sin and pain and hurt and death and all of that. So what do you do? I've always really loved this concept, and that's why I really love Gobier as a villain here.
I like that Gobier isn't antagonistic in the other episodes he's in. Mm-hmm. I like that they move past the villain status and they're like, okay, we understand that you made a mistake. Like, they don't hold it against him in future episodes. And I really like that, because I like it when there's a character who's like a one-time villain and then they move on because they realize their mistakes, and characters like just don't constantly hold it against them. Because like lots of the time they had some people's best interest in mind, or like it wasn't their fault that they were a bad guy, or with some misunderstanding or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I could see so many other characters just like holding a grudge, maybe not necessarily in Odyssey, mm-hmm. like in our protagonist, but like in other shows or something like that, holding a grudge against Gobier for what he did in this and not letting him forget it, or just like not even talk to him in future episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that brings me to Amon, who's the best character. After finding out what Gobier did to everyone and thoroughly chewing him out, she gives him a clear, concise, and logical list of the things he needs to do to atone to each party affected, and then she's like, I'll be walking with Kwame across the river. Let me know when you're done. I'm like...
She's just like... She's so great. I love her so much.
Once again, like, I don't have a whole lot of small notes throughout the episode because I'm always just so enthralled with how well-written each conversation is. And I'm just... Oh,
it's like so the wives in this episode. She's like, you got her and you got Katrina. And Katrina's really great in this because she's like so supportive and not in a way there where it's just like blindly supportive.
Yeah.
Like when Eugene is going down a path of self-destruction, she like tells him.
Yanks on his leash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's like, don't play with that knife because you're going to hurt yourself more than you hurt the snake and stuff like that.
Gobier, when he was talking to Eugene and Katrina about what he did, he says, I tried to be a god, which ties things back around exactly to what I said about the Garden of Eden, because that's the role that he was playing in that story, except missing out on the most important part, which is handing the element of choice over to the people. I like the way Kwame says that the other side of the river was the same as here. Like, I like the way that he reads that line. It's very level. It's not pouty, but it's not over-enthusiastic. It strikes me as the measured balance.
It's like indifferent, kind of.
It strikes me as the measured balance between the understandable disappointment of putting the other side on a pedestal his whole life and realizing that immediately, at least, it's not that different. The grass isn't actually greener on the other side of the river, but also balancing with the understandable and significant fact that he is able to leave his village for the first time of his life and all the deeper meaning that holds for him in his future. So his level response has always conveyed to me that Kwame feels this balance of knowing it's not the glorious and flashy thing he's dreamt of, but it's the path to get there, and he will someday. So he's like, I'm not like, oh, this was so amazing, but he's like, this was a good thing and happy. So he's like, it's the same as it was here. And it's like, I knew that this would be the case, and I accept that, but I'm not disappointed because I know that there's a lot bigger things coming out of it.
Aw, that was beautiful.
Thank you. I really like Providence brought the Ashanti transmitter request to Eugene and Katrina specifically. I mean, there's the whole thing at first, right, where they're like, my father requested me, and then they find out no. So I really like that Providence brought Eugene and Katrina to do this transmitter, not just so Eugene would learn about his father, but because Eugene also needed the in of being recognized as Maradi's son to be trusted enough to be taken in by the Ashantis. And they basically
hand up and stuff.
Confirm in they confirm in A New Era, like, they would not have trusted anyone else to come in and do this. So even all of the stuff about Eugene learning about Leonard aside, no one else could have come to the village and set up that transmitter. So they wouldn't have been able to do that, and they wouldn't have been able to get Yosef back because Yosef wouldn't have taken them in to try and trade them if Eugene didn't look like Marathi. So it's all things working together. I'm about to...
I would do a rant about Hands Up, but I just came back from the dentist, so it hurts to talk. If that's why I'm not talking a lot.
Do you have any kind of other thoughts about specific things before I roll into my ending spiel about all the amazing characters?
No,
Okay.
I kind of wish Yosef was in more episodes.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad that they put him back as the mayor of the village, the leader of the village. I talked in a previous part, I think part 2, about all of the lovely complex character dynamics going on in this 3-part that I love so much.
We never said Eugene got the transmitter working. We never said that in the summary.
I think I said that. I might have been wrong. So yeah, I wanted to rehash those again for the end of the review, also because it's been so terribly long since part 2 came out. So I already talked about Gobir in this part and his great character of his terrible moral dilemma over whether to try and protect his people from evil through manipulation, coercion, and murder, or allow them to be free, but exposed to the horrors and death and greed of the world. Eugene is so hesitant to believe in the idea that his parents could be alive. He's terrified to believe because he knows that any hope he pours into the idea will be blown back into something, or will be blown into something enormous, and the blowback could result in a truly devastating downfall for him. And it did, temporarily in part, and always in part, for Leonard and Thelma, respectively. He wants to believe, but he's so scared of what could happen if he dares to. Katrina is in a similar but much more interesting boat. Because it's a much more complicated version, because it's not her own heart that she has to put directly on the line here, but her husband's. So she's torn between cautioning and encouraging Eugene, and she wants him to feel happiness and hope and excitement, but she knows that they could destroy him. For Eugene, it was his decision to make about himself, and he weighs the risks he takes with his own heart. But Katrina has to weigh those risks against the cost to someone else that she loves, which is infinitely harder to do. Which is why I really love her arc in this so much, because she has so much more difficult tasks, because she has to weigh Eugene's heart on the line instead of Eugene weighing his own heart, which it's so much harder with someone else you care about, because it's like, what, how can I decide what's going to happen to Eugene and those risks for his safety? Yosef struggling with forgiving himself for the horrible and impossible decision of sacrificing Leonard and Thelma, or sacrificing his entire people. It was absolutely an unwinnable situation. I think he made the right choice, yet he's always going to bear the guilt and grief of what he chose so heavily that he chose to cut himself off from everyone he ever loved and live a life of isolation in the jungle for 20 years rather than face the judgment again from his people. Amon has been faced with heartache and betrayal time and time again. She's had to watch her husband leave her family to join the Wolofs and let himself fall into darkness. Still, she took him back again when he repented, and then again she learns he's been imprisoning her people, trapping them physically and spiritually because he felt like he had the right to make those decisions. And once again, when he repents, she forgives him again. She lets him know what he did wrong. She gives him his punishments, nothing over the top, nothing cruel. She gives him the exact punishments to atone to each wronged party and no more, and then she forgives him again. She's the strongest character in this story by far. These episodes did
I'd agree with that.
An incredible job and jump-starting into an exciting new saga with amazing locales, beautiful and complex characters, thrilling and shocking plot, great backstory and callbacks, and weaving together multiple storylines so masterfully, intercutting both physically and spiritual versions of the theme for different emphases about being trapped by fear, and the score is fab. Prisoners of Fear is one of the best 3-parters AIO has ever made. 5 out of 5, again.
Please don't say fab again. Duck face.
5 out of 5.
I think I'd give it a 4.5 out of 5. I can't really say anything that's different than what you said, though.
Any different notes?
You kind of covered all the good things.
I really like this episode.
I know you do. Maybe it's because I'm giving it a lower mark because you hype it up for me so much all the time.
So...
But yeah, I don't know. It's another one of those things like One More Name Part 3, or just One More Name in general, where it's just like, I can't really say. It's just, I don't know. It's just like, something's really, really, really good, but you don't like it as much as everyone else.
I understand that.
The Doug Walker, I've never been able to put it into words until I saw Doug Walker do a video on it called like something so good it's bad, where he's talking about like different things like movies and stuff that people consider to be perfect, but he's just never really gotten into them. But he agrees with all the good points they make. It's just he can't get into it as much.
Yeah.
And I've never had anyone put it so well into words until I watched him talk about it.
I saw a post once that talked about like either their 8-year-old or something like that, like their child or someone's child or whatever, who is watching kids watching ballet on TV, and they're like, "What did you think of it?" And he says, "It was absolutely beautiful. I didn't really care for it." And they were like, I think that's an attitude that a lot of people lose as they age. They think, if I don't like something, then that means I should think there's something wrong with it, or I should find some flaw with it to justify my not liking it, instead of recognizing that we can recognize something's good. That doesn't mean that we have to particularly like it. It's like, yeah, it's great. It's just not for me.
Like, whenever I find things like that, I always try and point out the fact that I think it's like really, really, really good. But I personally couldn't get into it. Like, that's how I personally feel about 2001: A Space Odyssey. And actually slightly a little bit about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I don't mean to pick on Stanley Kubrick for both of these examples, but those are just the first two movies I thought of.
So yeah, that's the end of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are we talking about next time, Victoria?
Aren't we doing predictions and stuff?
Yeah, but the main episode is what next time? The thing we were supposed to record today?
Oh, the OSG? The OAC 2016 soundtrack.
Yes. AIOC now. I keep on forgetting.
I know it's changed, but I don't care.
Okay. Just making sure.
I finally got this name down. I'm not going to name it something else.
Well done.
It'll take me another
3 years.
2 years, 3 years to get it right.
I respect that. Yeah, the soundtrack is already out. It's been out for quite a while now. It came out even earlier than last year, although at this point now it's basically going to, the review will come out as the same time-ish as last year, I think. So yeah, like Victoria said, doing that. We got 12 new songs to talk about. And then we also have our predictions for album 63, because we have the album cover, description, title, and the episode titles. So that's probably pretty soon gonna start coming out on the OAC, I imagine. So, until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And my mouth really hurts.
And you've been watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Bye.